Pharaoh send that him attack, truth and no. Teach for reparation for your figure. Rasta from Chicago, him light the way. Up at yourself, stay positive every day. Pharaoh said that me hear man the scream, talking about the history, what they never seen. From the land of Zion to the street, flame chad, spreading Jah love and giving praise to Jah. Pharaoh said that me hear on the screen, talking about the history, what they never seen. From the land of Zion to the street, flame chad, spreading Jah love and giving praise to Jah. Pharaoh send that him attack, truth and no. Teach for reparation for your figure. Rasta from Chicago, him light the way. Up at yourself, stay positive every day. Pharaoh said that me hear man the scream, talking about the history, what they never seen. From the land of Zion to the street, flame chad, spreading Jah love and giving praise to Jah. Pharaoh said that me hear on the screen, talking about the history, what they never seen. From the land of Zion to the street, flame chad, spreading Jah love and giving praise to Jah. Pharaoh send that him attack, truth and no. Teach for reparation for your figure. Rasta from Chicago, him light the way. Up at yourself, stay positive every day. Pharaoh said that me hear man the scream, talking about the history, what they never seen. From the land of Zion to the street, flame chad, spreading Jah love and giving praise to Jah. Pharaoh said that me hear on the screen, talking about the history, what they never seen. From the land of Zion to the street, flame chad, spreading Jah love and giving praise to Jah.
All right. Jah, Rastafari, look. For all the brothers and sisters that don't know, when you're around Rasta, never refer to His Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie as passed away or unalive, okay? Never do that, okay? So never refer to His Majesty as passed away, okay? All right, never do that. Okay, never refer to His Majesty in the past tense as passed away. Rasta do not acknowledge that His Majesty passed away. Okay. All right, for those who don't know. Okay. So that's for the brothers and sisters that don't know. Never refer to Emperor Haile Selassie as passed away. As Rasta say, John not dead, 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 no. Okay? Always remember that, all right? So today is His Majesty 133rd Earth Strong. It's probably a drum session going on today. And this coming weekend, there probably will be some gathering. And I was just going to chill. I wasn't going to go live at all. I was just going to, honor the day. But I had people asking me to go live, asking me. I got a lot of young Rastas out here. And I figured for the benefit of the community and for the young Ras brethren and sister, and for the people that don't know the culture, cool. I'll come do it. I didn't really want to. When it comes to things like that, the internet is a little bit argumentative, but I'm just going to block a lot of brothers till tomorrow. And so that's why I didn't really want to do it, because the internet is a little intrusive. Brothers would like to intrude on your space. And so when I come over, I try to talk about His Majesty. I didn't really want to be bothered with no Muslims or no Moors or no Hebrews being on that Luciferian type of time, where they got to step on brothers that ain't, I'm in my own space, and brothers will come over here and try to push some type of debate or argument. And today ain't the day for that. We wouldn't do that today. And they surely wouldn't come to any of our festivities with that. So, the internet for subjects like this, it ain't the best place. But I'm going to do it anyway. But it's just not the best place. The black man has no diplomacy. Some do, but he's lost his dignity. He lost his diplomacy. He lost his respect, his honor, his royalty. You understand? I got a certain amount of royalty. So I'm not going to go on no brother's account for the Nation of Islam and then challenge the Nation of Islam on a Nation of Islam account. See, that's where you don't have royalty. You know what I'm saying? You wouldn't be able to go to another man's country, right, and represent your country while visiting another country and work and set up trade, because you would want to be abrasive, and push your philosophy rather than go and do trade. You see what I'm saying? So I make sure whatever I say it over here on my own account. I never step on nobody. You'll never see me comment on nobody else's kingdom. I won't go into nobody else's kingdom and do that. But a lot of the internet brothers, they don't have no manners, So they'll come into this kingdom where I'm at, and they'll think that they could bring their mentality from their kingdom over to this kingdom, because they don't got the military, the royalty. You know what I'm saying? Like that. There's a certain amount of royalty. Like when you see the different presidents from different countries, and they meet in Washington or they meet at the headquarters of the other country, they leave all that alone. And, they just take a photo together, boom, and then they talk about what they're going to do as far as diplomacy. So, I didn't really want to be bothered with that, but I'll just ignore it because when someone is weak in their beliefs, they like to argue. And somebody that's strong in what they know don't do all that. So as soon as you see somebody that's really ready to go crazy over whatever their ideology is, that means they're not firm in it. You know what I'm saying? If they got to bring that to somebody else that's not even talking to them or intrude on somebody else's space, that means they're not firm in whatever their concept is in life. They're not firm on it. That's why you see Christians just going around like intruding on people with Christianity, because those aren't really Christians. They don't really, those are the weak ones. They're not strong in their faith or they wouldn't do that. And so when you see somebody trying to sell you their ideology, they're really trying to sell it to themselves. They're trying to make themselves believe it. And they're using you to try to enforce what they self believe. See what I'm saying? So they try to use you. Salute to my brother Baba TV. So anytime you see somebody going into somebody else's territory, like Baba TV, that's his territory. I'm not gonna go in his territory and be intrusive. If I go into his territory, I'm gonna be diplomatic and try to see what I can add to his network. I'm not gonna go on his network like that. Kings and queens, we don't do that. We don't function like that. So I didn't want to do that because I didn't want to be bothered with that today. Today is a special day, and I didn't want to be bothered, but it's cool. It's a lot of brothers and sisters just wanted to hear me talk, tell some of the history, break down to them what this is all about. And I'll do that as a comedic Rasta. You know what I'm saying? I am kind of rare in this thing. Now, I came into this through Kemet. I had my dreadlocks and I was an Egyptian. I wasn't associated with Ethiopia. I was associated with Egypt. My name hadn't been changed legally yet. I think it was about 21. My name was Akhenaton. And I really got associated with Rasta through veganism, basically vegetarianism was the key, because I was going to a health food store and I ran into a brethren and he gave me a flyer, and that was a flyer to go to a reggae show. And I went to the reggae show twice. The second night I met another brethren by the name of Josh Stone. But the first night I went, I had dreadlocks, but nobody had dreadlocks. My name didn't finally get changed until 1981 or 82. 1981, 82. So in 78, when I became aware, then I picked a name, and my name was Akhenaton at that time. And so when I went the first night, I got there early, and when all the brethren came and they had dreadlocks, I was amazed because I had dreadlocks, but I really didn't know that there was all these people had dreadlocks, because a lot of the Rastas would wear tams like this with their hair in it. So I didn't know all them black men I was passing had dreads under there. You know what I'm saying? So when I seen more people like me with dreads, I was like, oh, wow. Because, I started growing my dreadlocks based on ancient Egypt. Because if you look in the Pipers of Ani and stuff, they got the dreads and they be like, boom, right? And so when I first met the Rasta brethren, I remember going in the restroom and they say, yes, brother, Rasta. And then they say, what's thy name? And I said, my name is Akhenaton. And they're like, the great Akhenaton from ancient Egypt. And I was like, oh, because Black Americans didn't really know no history like that unless you was one of the few that would go see Dr. Ben or something like that. So I was like, oh, these brothers know all the information. These brothers know all the information. So that was very interesting. Oh, these brothers know the information. Wow. You know what I'm saying? And so I ended up going with these brothers. They found out I played trumpet, so they wanted me to come play trumpet in the band. And they was both older than I was. I was a baby. I was only like 21, 22, something like that. I was young. They was older than me. Justin was probably 30-something. And his younger brother, Gilly, was probably 29 or something like that. And the little brothers was younger than me. They was in high school. So they like 17, 16, 17. And one day they came with a book and they showed me, you know who this is? I'm like, no. They said, this Emperor Haile Selassie. I looked at it, I said, oh. They said, he the emperor. So me, when they told me he was an emperor, right away, my antennas went up because I'm like, a Black emperor? Why they never told us about dude, right? So right away, I knew His Majesty was somebody because I'm like, you mean to tell me that I've been going to school all these years since kindergarten, I ain't never heard of no King of Kings, no Black emperor? I'm like, this the man right here. And then that's when I found out about Emperor Haile Selassie, and that's when I found out about Marcus Garvey. So when I went home and I looked at, I kept looking, I started looking at pictures of Emperor Haile Selassie, going to the library. And by me being a Kemetic, I was like, oh, this is a pharaoh. So I acknowledged Emperor Haile Selassie as a modern day pharaoh. And me being a young pharaoh, you know, real recognize real, and pharaohs recognize pharaohs. So I'm like, this is a pharaoh. But I said, this is the big pharaoh. So the way I looked at Haile Selassie being the king of kings, I looked at him, and the first thing I noticed is he had on the triple crown, right? Now, by me studying Kemet, I knew that we had the crown of Upper Egypt. Then we had the crown of Lower Egypt, and these would be two rulers. So one ruler would have one crown for Upper Egypt, another ruler would have another crown for Lower Egypt, and then another pharaoh would have the double crown, which means, you know, like he would be the president and they would be like governors. So I knew about the double crown, but when I seen Haile Selassie, I said, he got the triple crown. So I knew who it was from studying ancient Kemet. I knew who Haile Selassie was. I was like, oh yeah, this is him. This is really him. So that's how I got into it like that. And plus the first time I met a Rasta in the bathroom at the reggae show, he said, princes shall come out of Egypt. Ethiopia shall soon stretch forth her hands unto Jah. So I said, wow, that's deep. You know what I'm saying? I said, wow. You know, right then I knew it was something right there. Because I went and looked it in the Bible, and then sure enough, it said Egypt and Ethiopia. And I said, yeah, this is the connection right here. And I just kept on checking out the connection and kept building from the Kemetic point of view. and music, because I could play music, and I really helped them get their band. We really had the best band in Chicago. Just our lead singer couldn't sing as good as some of the other brothers, but we really had the best band. So that's how I got into it. I seen all the signs and seen all the information. I was studying heavy verses like this: Princes shall come out of Egypt. Ethiopia shall soon stretch out her hands unto Jah. So when I seen that, I started to notice the connection. No, Joseph's not Imhotep. No. Was Joseph a Pharaoh? No, Joseph was like a ambassador, or like what you would be like, because the Pharaoh was the Pharaoh. The Pharaoh that gave Joseph the gold was the Pharaoh. He was already under a Pharaoh. So he wasn't no Pharaoh. He's like, just like you see the president, you got the president, you got a governor, you got a senator, you got ambassadors, like that. He was one of the lower politicians in Kemet. I got a live I'm going to do on Kemet to Chicago that's really deep, that I'm going to break down a theory, because you do know that Abraham had Ishmael by an Egyptian woman. And so if Abraham had Ishmael by an Egyptian woman and then had Isaac, and then Isaac had Jacob, and Jacob had Joseph and all them, and then Joseph ended up in Egypt, and then the Hebrew Israelites end up in Egypt. The question I got is, did the Hebrew Israelites end up meeting Ishmael's mother's relatives? Ooh, that's going to be cold. Think about it, because Ishmael's mother was from Egypt, and they all ended up 2 generations later in Egypt, where Ishmael's mother's relatives is at. So the question is, when the Hebrew Israelites end up in Egypt, what was the connection with Ishmael or Ishmael's relatives? Ugh. So I'll be talking about that in a couple of weeks. That's going to be fire. Nobody thought about that. Yeah, Hagar was from Egypt, and they ended up back in Egypt. So Hagar's family is still in Egypt. So the question is, did they talk about that? Did they be like, oh, our granddad, our great grand uncle Ishmael, Hagar? They're like, oh yeah, Hagar, our people live over there. You see, because Jacob came back with him, and Jacob's granddaddy is Abraham, so his granddaddy slept with Hagar. So Jacob would have known that story. So the question is, when Jacob got back to Egypt, did he look for Hagar's relatives? Was she back there? Was Ishmael there? Nobody knows. Eh? Think about it. I thought about that a few weeks ago. I said, this is deep. I need to talk about this. So yeah, today is an interesting day. You know what I'm saying? And we're going to get into some of the information about it. One thing about Haile Selassie, Emperor Haile Selassie is the first emperor. Haile Selassie is the first emperor that had his queen on the throne with him and married his queen the day of around the same time as the coronation. And this is the first time you had a king of kings. And the interesting thing is he was the king of kings. And guess what she was? He was the king of kings, and she was not the queen of queens. She was the queen of kings. A lot of people don't know that. He was coronated the king of kings, and she was coronated the queen of kings. Now, another thing that made me know Haile Selassie was different was this, what he has in his left hand. So I was really heavy into knowledge all my life, and especially with my 20s. So when I seen this picture, the first thing came to my mind, that's his wife. The first thing that came to my mind was a song. He's got the whole world in his hand. 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 That's what my grandmama and them used to sing. And when I seen this spear with the cross on it, I said, this is really him. And ancient Kemet, we can tell who you are by the artifacts you hold. So when you look at that crown, and you look at that spear, and you look at that scepter, that's how I knew that this was Earth's rightful ruler. Now, I use common sense to know that this was really the King of Kings and the conquering lion of the tribe of Judah, because my mentality was, okay, as a youngin', I always used to think how fortunate I was to be born in America. Because even as a youngin', I knew Africa was different. I knew people were suffering around the world. And I used to always think about how fortunate I was to be born in America, and how fortunate I was to be born in Chicago, and how fortunate I was to be in Maple Park, which is a beautiful neighborhood, and how fortunate I was to be in a particular house I had with the particular parents I had. So I always knew that that's a blessing for you to be where you be. So when I seen Haile Selassie, I said, okay, why him? Why is he there at that particular time, in that particular place in the world, at the time to be coronated the King of Kings? He can't make himself be there. He can't decide when he's going to be born. Life have to have him there. So that's how you know that he was really not normal. Because why I wasn't there? Why you wasn't there? Why I ain't the King of Kings? Why you ain't the King of Kings? Why none of us is the conquering lion of the tribe of Judah? What about him made him be born at the perfect time to be there? So that's how I knew who it was. I knew that he was powerful on the God side. I also knew he was powerful on the God side because you always picked based on your adversaries. And if you look at World War II, and if you want to say who the devil was, you would definitely say Hitler. And guess who was the opposite of Hitler? As a matter of fact, at the League of Nations, their rooms was right across from each other. So you got to think Haile Selassie coming with Winston Churchill, I think Stalin, Hitler, some of the most wicked people when it comes to conquering Africa and racism at an all-time high. His Majesty was there. So you don't get picked for a mission unless you got to be ranked as high as your opposition. So what's his rank opposite of Hitler? Because Hitler's not the little devil. Hitler's a big devil. He ain't no little devil. So his opposition got to be the big God. So I used all that to see what was going on. So I seen what was going on. I seen who it was. I didn't need Jamaican. I didn't need black men born in Jamaica to convince me. I seen it myself. I knew exactly who Haile Selassie was. Now let me show you something. Watch this. Let me show you something really magical. You see this picture? This is a picture of Haile Selassie with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 leaders of Africa. There's one on the left cut off. You know why he's cut off? Because if you don't cut him off, that's 12. So that's 1 and 12, like the Christ with the 12 disciples. So they cut one of the brothers off so that it wouldn't have that historical significance. See? It's only 12 people in this picture. But we used to have the original picture. And guess what I found? Bam. Christ and the 12 disciples. This brother on the left is the one that's cut off. You ain't going to find this picture nowhere. I looked far and wide. I think Pazzi found this picture. You cannot find this picture. They have tried to eliminate this picture because of the significance of it being 13 and the significance of 12 disciples in Christ is 13. You can't find this picture. The brother on your left, they cut him off. This is a sacred picture right here. Can't find it. Like I had it back in the 80s. And I used to say that, I mean, like, look, this looks like Christ and the 12 disciples. So then when I tried to look it up in these times, it was gone. It was nowhere. I said, oh, they're erasing the information. So you better start saving stuff. Does she have it with all 12? Because sometimes it's cut off. If she got it with all 12, she's got a good picture. She got a good picture. You need to get a copy of that because they're trying to delete history. Another picture is they have this festival and you take this, you put these gloves on, and you take this hot iron pipe that shoot fire out, and about 10 men take it and they shoot it into a cauldron. No less than 3 to 4 to 5 men have to hold this thing to shoot it in the cauldron. And you have to wear these special gloves because it's hot. There's a picture of Haile Selassie holding that hot thing with his bare hands and shooting it into a cauldron. And the fire comes up in the shape of Africa. Another picture that you can't hardly find. Well, guess what? I found it. This is Haile Selassie holding that by himself. Usually a bunch of people hold it. And shooting it into a cauldron. And it makes the continent of Africa. They're also trying to hide this sacred picture right here. They're trying to hide this. You seen it when you was 9? Mm-hmm. Look it up, Herbo. With his bare hands. You're supposed to wear special gloves to hold this. You're supposed to wear special gloves to hold this. There's many, many, many mystical stories about His Majesty. Very, very many mystical stories. Yeah. And this is when the black man first became God. And this has ended all of fake philosophies about religion and a whole another concept. Even the way Rasta was formulated was mystical. The entire formulation was mystical, historical and mystical. In Jamaica, you got mountains. And when they was fighting their revolution, a lot of the Africans that was there as slaves escaped into the hills. So there was brethren in the hills. And them brethren, they had dreadlocks. Wasn't no Rasta yet. They was just natural people in the hills. So you had these natural brethren up in the hills that had fought the British and stayed up in the hills. They had no barbershops and all that. And they ate off the land and they recognized plants from Africa and they became the herbalists. You see, in Jamaica, they know this herb for this herb for that, this herb for that. Right? So you had that group. And then around the Caribbean, you had this religious group of brothers that was like black Christians. They were all black and they read the Bible a lot, right? So you got the brethren that's in the hills. You got these brethren in Trinidad and the Virgin Islands stuff that was like this black religious church. They were all black. And then you had the Garveyites. So when Marcus Garvey said, look to the east where a black king shall be crowned because the day of deliverance is here, then when His Majesty got crowned, it was the religious brothers through the Caribbean that found that in the Bible. It wasn't the Garveyites that found that in the Bible. It was these brethren throughout the Caribbean that read the Bible zealously. They knew everything in the Bible, and they saw the King of Kings. That when they heard His Majesty was the King of Kings, they was the ones that said His Majesty is the one that Marcus Garvey was talking about. Marcus Garvey became jealous because Marcus Garvey thought he was talking about himself, but he wasn't. So now these brethren that read the Bible a lot, and these Garveyites, and these dudes up in the hills with the natural hair, it was a spontaneous combustion. Rasta. That's how Rasta was born, from them three groups. Because the brethren that had read the Bible, when they seen the brethren in the hills, they was like, look, Numbers chapter 6, and let the locks, those dreadlocks you got. So the brothers that knew the Bible was the ones that put everything together as far as historically based on the Bible. The Garveyites was the one that put the concept of Africa, and the brethren in the hills was the one that had the natural hair and was into the natural food and the ital, natural herbs live off the land. That together made Rasta. It was a spontaneous combustion. Even a lot of Jamaicans won't tell you that story the correct way. That's how Rasta really got started. This is before Leonard Howell and all that. Then later, it was a natural combustion from these three different groups, but the center was the religious ones, the one that seen everything in the Bible and say, look, this is in the Bible. Look, your hair is in the Bible. Look, Samson had hair like you, hair like wool. They was the ones that knew what everything was. They used to wear all black. They was really big in the Virgin Islands, Trinidad, and Jamaica. It was a religious group. So them mixed with the Garveyites and the brethren in the hill, bam, Rasta. A lot of people don't know that. Because a lot of the original information that they was teaching in 78, 79, 80, 81, they ain't teaching it no more. It's gone. It's gone. They're not teaching, Ras Kojo and all them passed away. So a lot of these, they supposed to be elders, but they not teaching what the original elders was teaching, what Mortimer was teaching, and Ras Kojo Brown, my teacher, Kojo. You understand? All of this stuff be godly. You can't make it happen. You can't make it happen. I give you an example. I'm at the beach in Chicago. A dude asked me, do I got some herb? I said, no, get away from me. He's like, dang, man, I'm from California. I said, oh, my bad. I thought you was just a weirdo from Chicago. We become friends. I go see the Rastafarians here, get a brochure. They live in California. I want to go to California. I'm tired of getting in trouble for herb here. I tell the brother, I'm going to California. He said, you can go stay with my brother. My brother got dreadlocks. Cool. He hooked it up. Me and my brethren, we get on the Greyhound bus. We go to Cali. His brother come home from Cool Jazz Fest. We go stay with his brother in Compton. I'm going to show you how the Most High is behind all of this. So we in Compton. But we had already knew King OG and them from the King's Chamber. They some Kemetic Rastas like us. These some Black American, foundational Black American Rastas, Egyptian Rastas, and we were some Egyptian Rastas. So we used to go from Compton to LA and sell incense. One day, standing at the bus stop to take the bus to go to LA, a van drives by us with two Rastas in it. They stop. They're like, Haile brethren. We're like, yes, I Rastafari. They go 2 houses and park. And an older Rasta brethren gets out and walks up to us to tell us to come with him. We go with him. He got a big ganja tree in the backyard. We end up staying with him a lot. But to make a long story short, that was Ras Kojo Brown that you hear in the Black Hero song, Aya Bingi Kojo are coming. So this is Kojo, who is basically second in command to Mortimer Plano. That was on a plane with His Majesty. So we end up, see, you can't make that happen. You can't just be on that bus stop 2 houses down from one of the main elders that taught Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, and all of them. He's one of the brethren that was with Bob Marley and Peter Tosh and them before they was Rastas. They started growing dreads around them. So now I'm just a baby. See what I'm saying, baby Lane? So now I'm sitting up getting it straight from the source. And I'm a shorty. I'm like, what, 21? And you see how wild I am. So I'm 21, military, Rasta. So now I'm getting the information straight from them. That's why I know so much, but I don't got nothing to do with this. I'm telling you, it be like, okay, so this is Mortimer bringing His Majesty out the plane, because His Majesty came out the plane, seen all them Rastas, went back in the plane. They called Mortimer. Mortimer came down there, went in there and escorted His Majesty out. Him and Kojo was like this. I lived with Kojo. So now I'm living with Ras Kojo. And it's crazy because he didn't have no phone or nothing. He just had out, he's living just like in Jamaica, but it's warm in LA. He don't need it. He got fruit growing in the back and herbs. So the neighbor next door had a phone, so the phone would ring. They'd be like, Kojo, Ramesses, I go get the phone. You know, because my name is Ramesses. My name's not really Pharaoh. Pharaoh's my first name. My name, everybody call me, is my middle name. Pharaoh is just my title. Pharaoh Ramesses. I put Pharaoh on my name, so anytime the Europeans call me, they got to call me king. They got to call me Pharaoh. But all my friends just call me Ramesses. So the phone would ring. I would go next door. I'd pick up the phone like, hello? They're like, who this? I'm like, this is Pharaoh. This is Ramesses. Kojo told me to get the phone. Like, this I Peter Tosh. Tell him I'll be there tonight. Or this Michael Rose, the singer from Black Uhuru. Or this Jimmy Cliff. Or this, you know what I'm saying? So, all, you know, now imagine I'm a baby and all the biggest reggae stars are calling Kojo. So he's telling me all about Bob. When Bob was little, he's showing me pictures out of these sacred Bibles. He's telling me about He told me about Jimi Hendrix was getting ready to be a Rasta, and a Rasta played conga with Jimi Hendrix, and Jimi Hendrix was starting to grow his dreadlocks before they unalived him, all of this. So a lot of stuff, a lot of Rastas don't know, even some older Rastas. I know a lot of things they don't even know. But I don't got nothing to do with it. So you can't beat on your chest. So anytime you see somebody beat on their chest, you know they are false. They false because you don't got nothing to do with it. I don't got nothing to do with that. I don't got nothing to do with knowing none of that stuff. That just fell in my lap. I didn't do nothing spectacular. I was just down on the bus stop. I didn't do anything. I don't, I can't beat on my chest for that. I got nothing to do with it. Absolutely nothing. So I lived with Ras Kojo, and I was able to get a lot of information straight from the source of the beginning of the culture. There go Ras Kojo right there. His sons is older now, and they doing shows and stuff. You know what I'm saying? If I was in LA, I would go see his sons. They was little boys, and they used to run up on me. Kojo's son, there's like 7 and 6. And I bet y'all know who my daddy is. They would say, my daddy know Jacob Miller. You know what I'm saying? There was little kids. They would run up on me and they would test me. They'd run up on me and say, I bet you don't know what Shine-Eyed Girl means, because black girl says Shine-Eyed Girl is a trouble to a mind. And them little boys would test me all the time because I'm a Black American Rasta. They want to see if you know some Rasta stuff. You know what I'm saying? They was tripped out. For real. I'm following them on I can't wait to see them. They was little boys. I can't wait to see them, man. Man, that's going to be so funny, man. I got to tell them about themselves. And so that's how I got a lot of the information. Now, I was around some elders here, too, but the elders I was around here, they wasn't as old as Kojo and them. The Kojo and them that was a whole nother age group. That's a whole nother age group with that brethren. And so I kind of been close to the situation with His Majesty and what's been going on with Rasta and the history of Rasta, how it was built, how it started, and all that. As a matter of fact, I got a picture of Kojo and his sons. Let me post that picture of him with the baby boys. This is right before I got to Compton. I probably got to Compton within 6 or 7 months after. See, there he goes there. Now, maybe I probably got there by maybe a year or two after this, because this little girl, I think in the front, and she was older. And this the little boy, and then that's the baby boy he holding. So this is his daughter right there. So by the time I got there, the boys was about 2 or 3 years after this. That's his son right there that used to run down on me. This one right here, this little boy on the right. He used to, him and this little, the baby, they was both little boys, and they used to run down on me, and they used to give me Rasta quizzes. They would run up on me, or they would tell me, my daddy know Gregory Isaacs, you know. My daddy know Jimmy Cliff. My daddy know Freddie McGregor. So this is the man. They taught Bob and them reggae. They invented, Mortimer Planter and Kojo invented reggae. Because Bob and them was singing doo-wops. They was singing Smokey Robinson and stuff like that. And when they went up there, they developed a music based on the Nyabingi drums. See, because these is the Nyabingi elders. These ain't 12 tribes. Yeah, they would give me roster quizzes. Oh, yeah, Exhibir. So they would give me roster quizzes, but I'm young, and that's how I found out a lot of stuff. And Kojo would show me all kind of writings from Bob Marley and all type of old ancient books of pictures of he showed me a old Ethiopian book, and it had a picture of Jesus Christ, and it was Haile Selassie. It was Haile Selassie. It looked just like him as a baby. If you know anything about Ethiopian drawing, everybody almost look alike. So it's a bunch of people standing around and their faces all look alike. But that baby didn't look like, and that baby was Haile Selassie. And this was drawn before Haile Selassie was around. It's like an old, I seen some stuff that make you go, whoa, holy camoli. So I'm telling you all of that to tell you, I'm not telling you no make-believe stories. This is straight from the horse's mouth. I got the information directly from the original Nyabingi order. These are people that knew Emmanuel. Okay? These are people that know the founders of the 12 tribes and all of that. And Reuben and all of them. They know all of them. This is at the top of the chain of command. And when they all would get to town, this is who they would look for. Because him and Mortimer was on some type of diplomatic expedition with His Majesty, flying around to go to see if Africa was feasible for us to go back. This is when Mortimer came back and told the Rastas, "Nah, Africa ain't ready." He went and looked and did a thorough, went to a few countries and came back and told the Rastas, "No, Africa's not ready. It's too far behind." He told the Rasta in Jamaica, that Africa was more further backwards than Jamaica, and it wouldn't make no sense to go there. They was on the plane with His Majesty. Because His Majesty stayed in contact with Mortimer, and he was doing diplomatic work. These is all facts. Yeah, he went and he did that. And then see His Majesty, we talk about FBA and all that, His Majesty was 100 support of FBA. 100%. When he came to Chicago, he spoke highly of us. That's a fact. A lot of people don't know that. When he came to Chicago, he told my friends that worked for Ebony and Jet, he told them, he said, I'm not just the king of Africa. I'm the king of black people all over the world. A lot of people don't know that. But I would love to have that tie and that jacket. I need one of them. I need to take this picture and take it to a tailor and say, man, make me this exact. I ain't going to have all the medals, though, because I ain't pull off all that stuff he did. This is real talk. So his majesty ain't no joke. Much respect to everybody in Houston. So that's how I got into Rasta, because I knew His Majesty was a modern day Pharaoh. I already knew. And I already knew that Ethiopia was the only place wasn't conquered. And I knew I was connected with all of that because Ethiopia is the mother of Kemet. So it's like back in those times, you know how you got Illinois and then you got Chicago. Well, Ethiopia would be Illinois and Egypt would be Chicago, right? Would be the special place. Everybody in Egypt that ran Egypt was not Egyptians. Egypt was the original Washington, D.C., where all the king of kings, where all the kings around Africa would go to Egypt to take care of business. This is why they emulate and got the obelisk and everything in Washington, D.C. They are emulating Kemet. Kemet was the Valley of the Kings. It was where all the kings would go. So if I'm a king in South Africa, I rule my country. I got a son. I rule my country. My son be there. I bring my son up. The next thing you know, my son 45 and I'm 65. When I get 65, I put my son in charge there and I go to Kemet like a senator or a congressman. And then our sons from all over Africa would communicate with us in Kemet to let us know what we need around the continent. And a lot of times we had bullies in West Africa, so the East African military would send people to straighten them out. And this is why a lot of the West Africans did not like the East Africans, and that's why they sold East Africans into slavery. Because when Sun Ra went to Africa and Mexico, they told him 80% of Black Americans are from ancient Egypt. All of this that you from over here is nonsense because the blacks over here is from Egypt. When they tell you all about blacks was over here and Moors, all of them from Egypt. The Moors was riding with Hannibal and stuff way before they was Moors. They was not always Moors. Facts. They became Moors. They wasn't no Moors. What were they before they was Moors? They never go back to that history. They was in Hannibal's army. Facts. And a lot of the brothers and sisters was from East Africa that was over here. A lot of them floated over here when the Pangaea split. They didn't sail over here. They was already on the land when it split. That's why you got pyramids over here, because they used to be all connected together. Duh. All the land used to fit like a puzzle. It wasn't all these continents. It was one big piece of land. And then it split up and became all these continents. There was not no bunch of continents. Anybody telling you that people's already over here don't know what the hell they're talking about. The original people over here floated over here when America floated over here. That's why when you read in Egypt, they used to keep talking about, they used to talk because at first the continents was close. Of course, when they first break apart, you can see it. It's going to take a while before it get far apart. So when you read and they be talking about the other side of this and that, the West, you used to could see South America and what you call America right from the coast. It took a long time before these continents floated this far apart, and they're still floating. And as a matter of fact, Europe is floating back into Africa. Yes. And some, yeah, all the continents used to fit together and they floated apart. It's called the Pangaea. That's what it's called. I suspect that they broke when the Tower of Babel fell. And it said, I got to split up y'all language. That's what I suspect. And there's pieces missing because Atlantis sunk and Mu sunk. But Mu had volcanoes. So them volcanoes made new land that we call what? Hawaii. Hawaii is the volcano land. Hawaii is Mu. But because they had volcanoes, it kept shooting lava and eventually made an island, 1 island, 2 islands, 3 islands. But under Hawaii, that's Mu. And what's in the Atlantic? Atlantis, duh. The Atlantic Ocean, Atlantis, is also underwater. A legend has it they blew each other up. Some people say that the war was so bad that they actually blew the moon off the earth, that the earth was bigger than this. That's what some people say. That's why it's all them craters on the moon from the war. That's what some people say. That the war was so bad, that's why the moon got all them holes in it, and they actually blew it off the earth. But they sunk Atlantis and Mu, both sunk. Allegedly, supposedly. And so now for the Rastas, there was a trinity. And the trinity for the Rastas used to be Haile Selassie, Bob Marley, and Marcus Garvey. This was the original Holy Trinity for the Rastas. This is a fact. It wasn't Emmanuel. That's false. Emmanuel was not considered a holy man in Rasta history in the 70s and in the 80s. That's new stuff. Weirdos made it up and turned that after he passed away, and they had that body up there a long time smelling. The government had to go and make him move his body. They tried to say he was still alive and all that. right? They tried to say Emmanuel was still alive. He was up there stinking up the whole mountain. They had to go make them get him from up there. Then once they made him get him from up there, then they said he went to Florida or something. He was still alive. Just start making up hocus pocus stuff. That's why now Rasta, you can see where it went with the Bobo, especially the Bobo. They turned it into some, you understand? That's why I don't respect the Bobo, because Rasta never was a religion. We fought many years not to be a religion. Many, many years. We fought not to be a religion. And these new brothers came and sold us right back to Pope Paul. Made Rasta a useless religion. The Bobo Shanti. They put you to sleep with religion. If you look at the Rastas, you would never know His Majesty was a warrior. You wouldn't get that idea. And see, we fought a long time because Lucifer been trying to make Rasta a religion for a long time. They've been trying to make Rasta a religion for a long time. But you got to understand that Rasta was the outcast, right? Rasta was the outcast. Jamaicans didn't like Rasta. Okay? If you don't understand that part, then you'll never know what really happened. See, Jamaicans didn't like Rasta. Rasta was the outcast. Rasta used to have to hide in the jungle because if he come to the city, they would beat him and tie his hair to the back of the police car and drag him down the street. This is my brother in Kojo. He couldn't even go visit his mother. You understand? But when they started to play reggae, and then when reggae got involved with the Sunsplash, and then all these European and tourists started coming to Jamaica to see the reggae, then all the Jamaicans wanted to become Rasta so that they could play reggae. So that's how we got all those Rastas in the 80s, because they just wanted to be reggae stars. So the same people that hated Rasta, when they seen that the white folks like Rasta, now they wanted to be Rasta. So now the Jamaicans start saying, Irie, soon come. Those aren't Jamaican words. Those are Rasta words. But the Jamaicans took them. So all the Jamaicans now start pretending they was Rasta playing reggae. And once all the Jamaicans took over reggae, then they turned it into dancehall. So they took it over, then they flipped it. And they started pushing Yellow Man, Shaba, and made it what it is today. Because they never was that. They was just doing it for the white tourism to make a money. And so then all the youth thought that's Rasta. So then as they get the slackness, instead of somebody like a Capleton who was fighting against the soft dudes, they start pushing a soft form of Capleton. See, Capleton was the real Bobo Shanti, fighting against the soft stuff. So they just kept bringing in soft Bobos to overpower Capleton and turn it into some weird girly music. And now the Bobos ain't nothing. Now it's just slackness on everything. And just push Rasta music ain't nothing. Now, if you want to go see reggae in Europe, you're going to go see a white group. They gave it to the whites. Roots rock reggae is white now. Facts. The group that had the most plays that Bob Marley's white. The group that won the Grammy was white. They took it. See? Look how His Majesty look. Look at His Majesty main man. Look how the brother looking. Look how the brother looking. Had them thousands of Rastas out there. Look how he looking. Like, what the hell is this? They had to get the Rasta man to bring him out. Look how the brother looking. The brother face say everything. Look at the black man face. Look how he looking at the crowd. He ain't never seen nothing like that in his life. And so when the Rasta see Mortimer come out there, everybody chill out. So that's when His Majesty took Mortimer and them with him. That's when he took Mortimer and Kojo with him around the world to go figure out what was going on. They rode on the plane with His Majesty. But they had never seen nothing like that. These was natural people from in the hills. These were no reggae people. Like now, these were no prissy Bobo Shanti or nothing like that. This wasn't that. This was the Rudical people. Connected to the Maroons and the war against slavery. That group. This the older group. The real black Africans. Look at everybody here and look at Mortimer. Look at Rasta. You don't see no hair wrap on his head. You ever seen a lion with a head wrap on? They ain't gonna tell this stuff no more. They done watered it down and sold it out. They done got rid of this for this. Once they moved up Emmanuel and changed his position in the history, it ruined everything. It ruined everything. The Bobo Shanti single-handedly destroyed Rasta. Single-handedly destroyed it. That's why I can't stand them. You know what I'm saying? They destroyed Rasta. Single-handedly. Took us right back to the church. Took us right back to the church. I seen the sister from Rastafari TV. She was over somewhere. They had all them white clothes on. They was at some Ethiopian church. I just shook my head. I said, look at her. I said, look at this shit here. She was at the Ethiopian church with all them white clothes on. They want to be so church. They want to be holy. You know what I'm saying? They ain't no revolution. They ain't trying to fight for nothing. They want to be holy. They trying to go to heaven and shit. Then every now and then she trying to talk some revolutionary shit. I just be being nice. When I was younger, I would have been trashing her. But I ain't even got time. I see she's selling out over there, trying to push all that Ethiopian Orthodox Church bullshit when we in a war for our life. The Ethiopian goddamn Orthodox Church ain't even doing shit in Ethiopia. Ethiopia ain't shit. So why would I want to be in that church? Well, Ethiopia got 2, 3, 4 wars going on. Right where the church at, they ain't nothing. They ain't doing nothing. They over there having wars all over. Tigrayan, Aroma, Amara, having war. Right there where the Ethiopian church is at. Why ain't no holiness doing nothing? And gave our culture away, the Bobo. I can't stand Bobo Shanti. They gave our culture away. Look. Look. This is what the Bobos did. Look. Just look. This is how we lose our culture every time. We turn it from militant into some churchical shit. Then people come and start changing the religious philosophies and writing books and going and praying. And next thing you know, Rasta won't even be black no more.
Era send that him attack, truth and no. Teach for reparation for your figure. Rasta from Chicago, him light the way. Up at yourself, stay positive every day. Pharaoh said that me hear man the scream, talking about the history, what they never seen. From the land of Zion to the street, playing Chad, spreading Jah love and giving praise to Jah. Pharaoh said that me hear on the screen, talking about the history, what they never seen. From the land of Zion to the street, playing Chad, spreading Jah love and giving praise to Jah. There send that him attack, truth and no. Teach for reparation for your figure. Rasta from Chicago, him light the way. Up at yourself, stay positive every day. Pharaoh said that me hear man the scream, talking about the history, what they never seen. From the land of Zion to the street, playing Chad, spreading Jah love and giving praise to Jah. Pharaoh said that me hear on the screen, talking about the history, what they never seen. From the land of Zion to the street, playing Chad, spreading Jah love and giving praise to Jah. There send that him attack, truth and no. Teach for reparation for your figure. Rasta from Chicago, him light the way. Up at yourself, stay positive every day. Pharaoh said that me hear man the scream, talking about the history, what they never seen. From the land of Zion to the street, playing Chad, spreading Jah love and giving praise to Jah. Pharaoh said that me hear on the screen, talking about the history, what they never seen. From the land of Zion to the street, playing Chad, spreading Jah love and giving praise to Jah.